Committee meeting to order. Let's start with introductions. Intros.
Forrest Dunbar.
Pete Peterson.
Felix Rivera.
Jamie Aller. Thanks, all.
And Cameron.
Yes, Cameron Perez-Verdilla.
Austin.
Austin Quinn Davidson.
And Crystal.
Here.
And then we were just joined by Christopher Constant. So for folks on the phone, if you can text me to get into the queue. As usual, Rules Committee meetings, I like to run these more informally in terms of Mr. Chair, etc. Okay, let's get started. So, do we not have the agendas?
We do have agendas.
Thanks. Thank you. All right, so we'll start with under new business report from the Assembly Chair, and the clerk is actually not here today, so we're going to skip that part. So first is on leadership goals, quarterly comprehensive update. So the Assembly 2019-2021 priorities, that is behind a schedule. We will look on getting this done sometime in July with review of the Assembly sometime in July during a special Rules Committee meeting. Next is alcohol tax town halls. So earlier this week, it was decided to switch these to virtual town halls. We will have dates picked out next week, and we'll continue planning and preparing and make sure everyone's in the loop. Ombudsman's office, the new remodel of their suite where the old bank was is shaping up pretty well. They are mostly complete and should be moving furniture in the coming weeks. Once that Ombudsman's office model is complete, then we'll shift focus to the other office remodels that are in the queue to get done. On connecting the dots, so for folks might see on the agenda under other items, connecting the dots, I accidentally put that down there. I meant to do that just as an Assembly Chair's report item. So as you all know, we are entwined in a lot of different discussions right now. Last week during a regular meeting that Austin and I have with the mayor and his team, it was asked for a meeting with the administration to really start, as I stated in here, connecting the dots on a lot of these different conversations and everything going on. So I'm going to do my best, as I have tried to do, to keep everyone informed as these communications progress. Talking about communications, so I want to talk about a little bit about communications and elections. So due to COVID-19, elections was not able to hire as many staff, which produced a savings. It's actually a pretty significant savings of $150,000, which I just learned about earlier this week from elections, because they didn't hire as many staff. Yeah.
But
I'm not done, but go ahead.
So thanks, Felix. But there were members of municipal employees from other departments that went and helped out, and so they were probably paid by the regular department. So overall, the Muni may not have saved 150. It was just the specific election budget ended up saving that. And Barbara probably has got additional details on that, but I think that's what the situation is.
So that's where I got the number was from Barbara, and So Barbara has informed me that we have this pot of money that is available to the Assembly Department of the Whole because of a variety of reasons that we'll go through when we present on the Assembly budget. The original intent when deliberating the 2020 budget in November to bring someone on board to help out with communications really couldn't be met 100%. We have Travis, who's doing a great job with social media, and we have a communications team that's led by Jennifer, which that team is also doing a great job, and they're doing great work. But the Assembly was looking for something a little bit more when we were looking at a communications position. So with this money now available, Assembly leadership is going to be putting forward some recommendations to bring to the body to accomplish the communications goal that we had last November. So that's just a preview to future stuff on that. Anything else members want or have questions on before I move on? Meg?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'd be a little bit interested in how the recommendations are going to fit with what the communications subcommittee is doing and has been working on. So I just want to flag that because we need to have some specific recommendations and some specific things we keep moving forward. So I want to make sure all that gels.
Yes, yeah. So when I did talk with leadership earlier this week, I did preview the idea of us talking to or working with the communications committee to make sure whatever we have is in alignment. So yeah, thank you for that. Want to also know that we're joined by John Weddleton. You on the phone, John?
I'm here.
Thanks. All right, I'm not seeing anything else, nothing in my texts. All right, so then moving on to Assembly priorities. For today, we were supposed to go through the latest draft of the 2021 Assembly Budget Priorities Memo. Unfortunately, this has also been delayed due to other events that have taken up time. I think we're still on track to meet the administration's deadline, which they had set of, Assembly, if you want to get some recommendations to us through another memo, you should get it to us by July 20th. So I think we're still set for that. Next week, I'll likely be contacting all of the committee leadership about the memo, asking for input, and then sometime before July 20th, we'll likely have some convening for us to review a final draft. Any thoughts on that before we move on? Okay. Then Assembly member discussion on pending business. So as usual, this is the part of the meeting where we will go round table and talk about any pending business that folks have or they're considering. I will start with Forrest this time around, go around the table, and then I'll go to the folks on the phone. So, Forrest.
Man, I'm trying to put it all together. Something's going on right now.
And if folks on the phone, if you can mute yourself, please, we're getting a bit of feedback.
I think I guess since I already, I don't know. I'm trying to think what I need, what I can talk about, what I can't. I think I can talk about this. So Ms. Zolotel and I are working on a transparency ordinance with the mayor's office right now to ensure that all APD policies and procedures are published on the website. That I think is progressing well, and I still think there's some work to be done on it, but the administration has been cooperative, so that's something that I was getting contacted pretty often. I don't know if y'all were, by members in the community asking for APD to be more transparent with their policies. They put out the rules for the use of force, but there is a huge volume of other policies and procedures that are not public. Not necessarily for any nefarious reason, it's just they're complicated, they're scattered, and APD is trying to gather them up. They haven't been put online since I think 2013. And so that is something we are working on. I'm trying to think what else. Can you come back to me? Actually, I need a moment here to gather my thoughts.
Sure, no problem. Pete.
Dean just finished the resolution on the Stanford Defender value, and we had a discussion about that in the Ethics and Election Committee meeting earlier, and so that will probably be introduced at some point in July, I would imagine.
Thanks. All right, I'll go And then actually, while I'm going, so can we make sure the models worksheet is emailed to John as well?
I told it to all of them.
Oh, it's all cool. Awesome. Thanks. Excuse me. All right. So a few things from me. So aside from the obvious stuff that you guys get from me on leadership and other stuff, if any members would like to engage with me in a conversation about mentorship opportunities for the Youth Advisory Commission, let me know. They are interested in building up a system that will allow for mentorship ingrained in that commission. And I'll be looking to work with school board members on that as well. Helping out with some MOA-related requests from the Alaska Black Caucus on Blackout Day 2020, which is July 7th. I have, along with Mr. Constant, Chris, have began talking with the administration last week about Juneteenth as a municipal holiday. We are continuing to work with, I'm continuing to work with community organizers and community groups around issues of systemic issues. And I'm going to make sure everyone gets a recording of the conversation we had yesterday, which I think was a pretty good conversation. Keep you in the loop on future events as well. I was told yesterday that Senate President Kathy Giesel has refused to go back into a special session. So her caucus is refusing to do so, which means that the...
John.
Hey, so folks on the phone,
I couldn't hear you.
Mute yourselves, or we'll probably just mute everyone on our end. Alright, so was told yesterday that Senate President Kathy Giesel has refused to go back into a special session, which means that the eviction moratorium will be lifted as scheduled. I will be crafting a letter urging her to go back into special session to specifically address this issue. I'm also going to be inviting everyone to sign on to the letter, those interested. At the same time, as I craft this letter and wait for a response from Senator Giesel, I will be working on an alternative solution which the municipality can implement regardless of state preemption, which has been the issue here, why the municipality can't take care of it. But I'm at a point right now where I don't care about state preemption. And because a lot of folks missed this during the May Rules Committee meeting, when I mentioned this, even though it hasn't moved much yet, I'm continuing to explore the idea of having people mover and anchor rides to a fare free service, as well as looking at some issues that have come up to my attention regarding snow plowing for sidewalks. So that was all I wanted to share today. Chris.
Thank you. Lots of interesting stuff. Ms. Altel and Meg and I are going to be working on soon. We're going to get a chance, I think we're meeting next week, on the Port User Commission. That is an important conversation for the port to progress. Many of you have been on a tour of the port now. I regretfully missed my climb up the crane. So I am working with Chris. I'm trying to motivate him to help me. Some of you received an email this week from one of my constituents about changing the ADU ordinance to allow an above garage ordinance, an above garage ADU in an R2 zone, like a duplex zone. And this is something that I have been working and talking with Chris about actually for more than a year since we passed the ADU ordinance. And so I'm not sure of the technical challenges there, but we're definitely in discussions. Another one is tax abatement policy for energy efficiency upgrades. That is something that the legislature authorized us to do in the last session. And I haven't yet gotten any progress on that ordinance, but I'm wanting to see a move. The challenge, of course, is everybody's still pivoted into emergency response, and so it's hard to get focused. But that is a priority. And the next one, Ms. Zalatel and Mr. Williams and Meg and John got to see me in rare form yesterday. AMAT's met. And those of you who've been around me for a long time know that I've been fighting to see the restoration of Gamble Street as a main street for 12 years, and the state has put every barrier they could possibly put in front of us. And in 2015, they threw up the wall of, we need to do a plan for the corridor so we can understand how it's going to work. And so they created the PEL process up in Fairbanks. They imported the PEL process and imported the project of the downtown PEL Glenda Sewer connection in 2017. And then in 2017, somebody behind the scenes moved the funding to that project to 2019, which delayed the project. Then they created the Midtown Congestion and Relief Project after all that started as a barrier to attacking the downtown variant. So in 2019, they promised it would be funded. And as you all know, this week ends 2020 for the state fiscal year. So we're now entering 2021. And at the meeting last month, they just ignored the request to have a briefing on the downtown PEL. And so I made a point, instead of blowing up and getting hot, to say, please, next month, have this on the agenda so you can give me a briefing. So this month, they forgot again to put it on the agenda. And, but I noticed the day that they issued the agenda, so Craig said, oh, I made a mistake, I just forgot to get it on there. We'll have that discussion. So yesterday, they came with about a 5-sentence briefing that said, because of the request of a couple of legislators, this project has been stopped and is not moving forward at this time. To which point I called the legislators, they were implying, and I got Senator Begich on the phone, which he railed against them for their abuse. And I did my best to not raise my voice too high, but I was very hot. And it became clear that DOT once again is attempting to stop the project from moving forward. And so they were railed really hard yesterday at AMATS, and they have, at least as of yesterday, stated that the project will be moving forward now, that they will get the bureaucratic hassle out of the way. I raise all of this because at some point in the near future, I'm going to need everybody's best thinking on how we address that corridor, because that corridor is holding down an entire swath of our lowest economic performing neighborhood. And it's been a 40-year problem that DOT has been at the heart of for all of this time. In 2013, the Fairview Neighborhood Plan was adopted by the Assembly. In that was a finding by the Planning and Zoning Commission that there's taking going on. What that taking means is that the people who live there and who own property there are having their values stolen by the uncertainty bank that the state is holding there. And the interest payments are due every year by the people who live and work in that neighborhood. And it's immoral and it's becoming evil. So, needless to say, the state has, Shooty just sent me an email, I can't open the files. Maybe sent me a copy of the RFP, which might have been finally released today after how many years since 2017? 4 years of waiting. And so that is a hot topic, and I anticipate nothing's going to come to you soon because there are probably 1,000 barriers that are going to put up along the way. I'm going to keep fighting that fight. I sat through the Sister Cities Commission 2 nights ago, and it was a very interesting meeting. There were a bunch of advocates for taking down the Cook statue, a couple people who were thoughtful about, hey, let's, instead of taking it down, have a conversation about what the actual problems are. And to which point the president of the Native Village and the mayor asserted that the conversation will, for the time at least, move over to Clutha for a conversation about what should happen there and how and why. Much of the news that's been reported that the mayor gave the statue to Clutha is not, in fact, accurate. I don't know why people choose to spread misinformation, but they do. What the mayor and the leader of the tribe said is that's the place that's really the best for this conversation. And sadly, that meeting wasn't recorded because there was a problem with Teams or WebEx or whatever, but it was a very interesting meeting, thoughtful. To that end, my final piece of my report is that the Native Village of Clutha government relations conversation with the Muni, with Cameron Perez, Rita, and Fort Dunbar, and myself, and Aaron Leggett of the tribe is moving through the pre-planning process. We're getting close to the point, I think, within a month or two of being able to release a timeline and a work plan of public process for that conversation, a set of potential outcomes. And the conversation, I'm sorry you can't all be there, is very interesting, thoughtful, and eye-opening, and I'm learning a ton every time we meet. We're meeting about every 2 weeks for an hour and a half. We're bringing in experts to help us understand what we need to contemplate as we move forward. and that's part of what we think of them.
Thanks. Jamie?
I don't really have a lot right now. I'm doing stuff, but I need to grab my thoughts on this in a later time. In what Chris just said, I had also a discussion with Aaron yesterday, and I have to say, I have complete faith that everybody's going to walk away from this potentially happy, the best we can to come together as a community. Because when I was speaking to Aaron last night, I wanted to make sure that I came with the walked away, so we all had an understanding that it's not necessarily erasing. And I agree with you in the fact that there's a misunderstanding what the mayor can and cannot do, and how we bring everybody in together to resolve this issue. And I think that we need to look at our history. We still have to embrace it. It is our history. We have to own it. And what the actual reasoning behind it, and it was a lot of, when I was speaking to Aaron, he did say that it's maybe not everybody understands this particular history of this particular statute and what Captain Cook did. But at any rate, I think that we need to build a bridge to go forward in the future. And there's so many wonderful things about our community, in the Native community, Hispanic community, and the Black community, to honor those with statues or memorials. I think it's a wonderful thing. If anybody's ever been to the mall in PC, it's amazing. So I just want to say yes, like a lot of misinformation, and this is something that is actually could be quite simple if we have a good discussion. So thanks for that, Chris. I appreciate what you guys are all doing on that. That's it.
Thanks. Meg?
I have quite the list. So as it relates to CARES Act funding, I'm working on an appropriation to put social workers and RNs in the school district to address the mental health and public health needs of our students. Hopefully it'll be a data-driven process to see the effect of those as compared to the SROs. I'm also working on exploring the idea of mental health first responders, and had a really great meeting this morning with Austin Quinn Davidson, Forrest Dunbar, and others, talking about different models and the impact of mental health first responders and how it would fit in the overall state mental health redesign under Crisis Now. So it's an ongoing conversation, but one I hope that we have with regards to our CARES Act funding and alcohol tax funding. On the ordinance or policy side, I'm working on APD's force ordinance, and I hope to have that ready to circulate and possibly introduce for the 14th of July meeting. I've been asked to pick up the shelter ordinances again and licensing scheme, so I am picking that back up. There are two parts to that. Title 21 piece, which we did have a meeting about, and we talked about at the Community and Economic Development Committee, and Mr. Weddleton is assisting with that, I think, as well as Mr. Constant and maybe Mr. Davidson as well. And then there's also the building operations part. The stuff that happens inside the building is a separate piece of the conversation. So that one's one I'm hoping to do in conjunction with our providers. Continued Care Act, or just a child care conversation about how we can restructure or rethink about child care in the coming months and years to ameliorate our child care crisis, especially as we learn what school might look like in the fall. I'm working on a styrofoam ban, and that is in conjunction with Harriet Drummond's office at the state level, and some work around payday lending. So that is my almost complete list, probably. Oh, and I want to say something about AMAX, because we don't have an opportunity to talk about what happens at AMAX with the body, and I think we should. So the Assembly gave really great and comprehensive comments on the NTP 2040. Little did we know that those comments that we would be limited as the policy committee to necessarily incorporate those comments or make big substantial changes to the NTP 2040 because of the requirement that if substantial changes are made to the plan this late in the game, it would have to go back out for public comment. I expressed concerns about that process. It makes the commenting feel rather hollow, a lot of work. There were some that were accepted, but they were more in the technical nature, I would say, not shifting. You know, we had, as a body, with our resolution, had really gone for a paradigm shift That will be the starting place for the next MTP, but we'll have the tip in front of us before then, and we will have the ability as a policy committee to possibly take those comments and those desires into account as we place projects in the tip, regardless of the scoring. But I would love to make sure that we are regularly updating this body on AMATs as it relates to our work, because I feel like it kind of happens in its own lane. It doesn't make its way back. So, thanks.
Thanks. Cameron?
Let's see, I don't think I have a lot to share that hasn't already been shared. Chris shared the work around the relationship with the city of Eklutna on the public safety committee. We're really looking forward to our meeting next week that's going to bring in a number of community leaders that are going to talk about their sort of perception around policing in the community, and also make some policy recommendations to us related to policing in Anchorage. And we hope to continue to explore the sort of concept of body cams and get an update from the administration on where they are in developing something in that area. We are also working on a work session for the full assembly on really understanding how our police force works, and so that when we're having conversations about policing and about what we should and shouldn't do, we have a really solid foundation for how it currently functions and works, from staffing to routes to hiring to all of that stuff. And so we have a meeting with Chief Dahl to really sort of prepare and organize that work session. There's a variety of other projects I'm working on, but they're really early at this point, so I will hold off on sharing those at this point. And just want to give a big thanks to Felix for spearheading the meeting that happened yesterday. I think it went really, really well, and it was a great opportunity for the community to step up and share a lot of their perspectives related to equity and race and policing and a variety of things. So thanks to Felix, and I think that's all for me right now.
Thank you. Austin?
Yeah, thanks, Felix. Some of the renewable stuff that's been on a long list that Shayna and I have been talking about, we've kind of put aside just with all of the COVID things going on. Some of them, one of them Chris mentioned, so I'm in on that as well. And then other than that, Meg mentioned some of the things. Feel like I've just been spending a lot of time thinking about the CARES Act and the alcohol tax and how those align, working to try to get some sort of strategic plan together for the alcohol tax, partnering up with Tiffany and Trevor to understand how they could bring together experts to give us some advice. And I've been talking a lot with the administration about ideas for CARES Act funding.
Thanks. Crystal?
Thanks, Felix. Couple of little things. Of course, sometimes little things turn into big things, but the quick one I can think of right now is working on the code for the street name alterations. Working with Chris Schutte on that and how we can kind of identify some of the gaps that exist in that process and for public input and make sure that we guarantee that there's good public process in that kind of a change, and especially working on it now because I'm working with Cook Inlet Housing. They have a project in downtown Eagle River that they are interested in changing a street name in, and so we want to make sure that we can do that with all the proper processes in place. So kind of monitoring that situation as it's ongoing, and then also, like I said, trying to address some changes in code that I think need to happen. And then the other one, probably much to everyone's chagrin, I've dug up the drone ordinance that Patrick Flynn tried a couple of years ago, and I think this will probably have some implications with what we're trying to do with public safety as well. But my real focus on it is just in regard to what kind of Privacy Act protections the community has over how some of these drones are being used, flying in people's backyards at window heights. And we've had a couple of repeated incidents in a neighborhood in Eagle River. So the public just kind of wants to know what they can do about it. And I think it's, we have peeping Tom laws, we have stalking laws and that, but there's kind of some potential enforcement issues there. So just kind of want to see if there's anything we can do to just help people have a better way to deal with these kinds of private drone issues. So anyway, like I said, just kind of digging that up and working with Todd Sherwood on it, and I'll just kind of see if there's anything we can fix. Thanks.
Thanks.
That's it.
Oh. Anything else, Crystal?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Thanks. John?
Hi. A couple things. I guess I'll repeat what a lot of people have said. But one is we're looking at the parameters on conditional use for homeless and recovery shelters and so on, kind of and aligned with the things that Megan said she's working on. And we'll continue to work through the subcommittee of the CEDC that met Monday, and we'll meet again next week. Also looking at Firewise things, and Chief Hetrick had said she'd like to spin off some of the Firewise tasks and kind of, I guess, continue a focus of AFD on more of its core mission, and just see where we go with that. And Parks Department would pick some of that up, OEM would pick some up, but something that I don't want to see made more complicated and not workable, because it's not working very well right now as far as planning and things for protection against wildfire, both, I think mostly the hillside and places in Eagle River. But certainly the funding we did on Tuesday will go a long way, but it's, there's not a clear situation now, I think, who's in charge of deciding what gets done and how it's done. I'm also still working on property tax payment delays for people who need it. And can people hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. And I know the department has said that their old cranky computer program can't handle it, so I'm talking to some financial institutions and saying, well, is there some way that we could work through them to kind of finance people when they delay property tax payments? And it sounds like that is something that is possible. One institution said, yeah, they're interested and they could probably do it. AMAS has been brought up a couple times here. We are at an interesting point. The policy committee kind of approved the MTP 2040 yesterday, and it'll be sent to the FHWA. And the process for us will be, we will get that and contemplate whether or not, I think it goes through the Planning Commission, but also to us, to contemplate adding it as a component of our comprehensive plan as our long-range transportation plan. So we have a lot of control there on how that looks, even if it's going to be different than kind of the official document that will guide the funding for roads. And that leads into, as I think Meg and Chris had said, is the next update of the MTP has already started. So that gives us really a strong starting point for the next one. And the comments we sent in and that others sent in, I'm going to try to get those in, it shouldn't be too hard, as kind of, again, a starting point. Take those comments, our starting point for this new NTP that we're working on, which will be out in a couple of years. Another thing that is clear needs to be done is change the public participation plan that AMAS works under. And in some regards, it delegates or makes the policy committee just a rubber stamp for processes that happen prior to things getting to it, and that needs to change. And I'll be looking at it to make sure that the assembly gets in there more actively earlier, particularly on the goals and objectives, which once those are set, it is very hard to go back and change, and we want to be on those super early. Another thing I'm working on, and I've had a lot of comments from people over the years, is they want to be able to use our rights-of-way for different projects, or they do use them, but the cost is extremely expensive and the restrictions are very tight. People who drill in the right-of-way to test for environmental issues and so on have huge fees, often more than what they're charging the customer to do the actual work. I think home builders have probably contacted most of us with some of their issues, and ACS wants to do micro-trenching and they're getting pushed back. And there are reasons to protect the assets in the right of way, but on the other hand, there are opportunities too. You know, we let the water utility go through there and tear up a brand new road to put a pipe in, because it makes sense. And there are other projects that make sense to be done in that right of way cheaply, so we can get more stuff. You know, better internet or whatever it is, cleaner soils. So I'm looking at that. I'll be working more closely with Bob Dole and others and Chris Schutte to see where we can budge a little bit. And then we continue to work slowly. It started early in the year, but we got sidetracked. When we redid the building permit fees, there are some pieces of that didn't work out very well, and we need to kind of get that fixed up. And I think the department didn't want to do it this year because it would throw off their budgeting and so on. And I don't think we put a lot of weight on that comment, actually, but as things have evolved, we're getting close to the end of the year anyway before anything would happen, so that might work out fine for everyone, but that's still kind of up there as an important issue. So I think those are the highlights. Thank you.
Can I add
Thanks, John.
comment to John's?
Yeah, sure, go ahead, Chris.
So,
Well, one other factor on AMAS is I'm going to work in that public policy plan to require that Mr. Constant be at every policy committee.
It's entertaining. John, also I want to mention what I spoke with you yesterday about the TAG. So there's an interesting phenomenon that happens at AMAS. One of the members of the policy committee started forever ago at the technical advisory committee. And all of the matters that come before the policy committee must first go through the technical advisory committee. And this person stated that she had been involved in AMATS through this process for 29 years. Just after reprimanding those of us who have a problem with the way it's working, are not on there long enough to understand how it works and how we just need to accept the fact that this is how it is and work around the problems. So very incredible and incredulous thing for this person to say. But what it brought to mind was this idea that we might want to contemplate when we renegotiate the AMATS MOU with the state, that we set a term limit on technical advisory committee membership. Because what's happening is the technocrats are building the city, they're setting the policy, they're getting their projects done, and no matter how hard you want to change anything, nothing changes but for their determination that it's the right thing to do.
Wait, I'm sorry, so where would that term limit have to be in state law or in muni code?
It would be in an MOU.
Okay.
And what the term limit would be that they can serve for X number of years, 3 to 5 years, and then they have to cycle off, and they can come back in 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
But what's happening is they are starting to own every lever of change, and they're not letting things change. They're holding hostage the process to their vision. And this was such a shocking thing to hear yesterday. It made it crystal clear for me that that's what's going on here. And it's the traffic engineer, and it's the air quality engineer staff from the state, and it's just all of those people who are employed by us or the state to do the technical work.
Yeah.
They're actually setting our policy. And I think term limits are a question we ought to be contemplating for those very important positions.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, I'll circle back to courts.
Yeah, I appreciate that discussion, and I think I've expressed here before, this is a great place to do the airing of the grievances. I have nothing personally against the people in our traffic department. I think they're all fine, but I have found that is the most difficult agency in our municipality to work with, to try to get them to do something. And I get they have this very involved process, but Pete and I, for example, right now we're trying to get traffic calming, or we're talking about getting traffic calming on the eastern portion of DeBar. If any of you are familiar with how DeBar works, there's another hidden portion of DeBar behind the Boys and Girls Club. It's a straight shot to almost a J-Bear fence, and people drive there very fast. And we, the city, are now putting in a very large park there. Where if you go there, it's actually pretty remarkable. A good portion of the park is now dirt because it's about to become a parking lot. And so the community is rightly confused or concerned that it's already a speedway and it's about to get a bunch more traffic. Can we get some traffic calming? And we just can't seem to get traffic to. Maybe it's a funding thing, but we can't even get them to ask for the funding to do it, right? And so it's so far it's been a problem. Anyway, that aside, I think most of the stuff has already been touched on. The included work, I'm also really excited, and we've been bringing in subject matter experts. I think we made some real progress. I think it's going to be a really interesting final product. It's been driven, I mean, what I appreciate about it is that Aaron has such a large voice in it, and I'm hoping that the next step will be the broader tribal council, but that might be a little bit further down the road. As Austin said, the CARES, and Meg said, the CARES Act work, I'm also really excited about that, and how that ties to the alcohol tax, and how it actually ties to the other broader conversation we're having now about policing. I mean, in these things, there is a confluence there where we can make some real good and some real change in a way that also addresses fairly pressing needs revealed by COVID-19. ADUs, I just know for the record, Chris, that I pushed for that during the initial debate, that for duplexes and triplexes it should be included, and it was just felt that was too much too fast. But I think that hopefully people are realizing ADUs are not the really scary, maybe in Rogers Park they feel differently, but at least in my side of town they don't see them as the tool of the devil quite as much. Thank you guys for passing the domestic violence ordinance on Tuesday night. During that lead up to that debate, the administration said repeatedly that this doesn't really solve the problem because there's a state law that is in the way. And the night we passed it, a state senator sent me a text being like, "I want to do this because you guys are doing it." So I'm not going to reveal who it is yet because I want to make sure we get further down the line. But they've already asked their legislative legal to start working on a state statutory change, and they're hoping to pre-file a bill if we can get the language right. So, and now of course was part of our legislative request, and it's a good example of when we can take action that furthers our own legislative request. Two other priorities that are probably going to be moved forward today through no direct action of my own are the Community Relations Task Force. I've been having conversations there, as have Meg and Felix and perhaps some others, for a number of weeks about that. We have a work session today, which I'm pleased about. And then masks. Obviously, Meg and I have been working on masks for a while, and perhaps in 15 minutes we'll hear something about that, but perhaps not. I mean, but it's going to be an ongoing discussion, but we've seen that it's become increasingly common throughout the country. I will say this, so just one last point. Texas right now, the major medical facilities in Texas are now at or very close to capacity, to the point where their conservative governor has again closed down bars and reduced certain other businesses to 50%. Because for exactly the reason you think. They threw open the doors, they had no mask mandates, they prevented cities from having mask mandates, they prevented any kind of meaningful social distancing, and their rates have just totally exploded. And so that is the kind of scenario we don't want to see here, and hopefully we won't. So anyway, thank you for coming back to me.
Thanks.
One last one, Mr. Chair.
Keep coming back to you, Chris.
Are you going to talk right now?
Yeah, you can go first because I already went twice.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you did good. So I also wanted to bring up something in regards to working with the homeless that we have going on. And I was in some conversations in regards to, what's it called, Intervention 2020. I have some concerns. So, right? Sometimes when you're in the weeds, you kind of see things a little differently. There's a gentleman by the name of Dave D'Amato, and do you know who he is? And I think there's some good ideas there. And I really reached out to Mr. Cossett.
I've talked to Nancy about him, and
I'm connected with him in the conversations that we're having
Okay.
as well. And-
Right.
And he's been invited to the committee and.
Yeah, because I think he feels sort of a little bit the same way with Intervention 2020, because it's the same old thing over and over. And I think we have to have fresh ideas and some fresh concepts to go forward. And if we keep doing the same old with that, we're trying to get our homeless community on the right track, we're just going to keep hitting dead ends. So I definitely want to work really closely on this homeless committee thing. So there's a different perspective, and you said you would take me
on the tour.
on a tour.
Yeah, no,
So I'm ready when you are. All right, that's it.
Okay.
Mine's very brief. One thing that hasn't been, and this probably leads into our further topics here, that and is we've heard all kinds of things about homelessness, and in particular the street level homeless people. And there's a whole continuum of other services being provided for categories of homeless people that aren't that street level inebriated. The one that's the visible homeless. And so I just would share that I was at a briefing with Covenant House today on some of their thoughts on how to transform the system for youth homelessness. And I recommended that they meet with you all.
They're reaching out to all of us.
Yeah, in pairs, ideally in your districts, just so they can save a little time. But I humbly ask you to listen well to what they have to offer. They have some good thoughts.
Oh,
That's great.
I have one other thing.
I actually have Crystal.
Okay.
Go ahead, Crystal.
All right, thanks, Felix. Actually, I just wanted to chime in on the homelessness issue and the Intervention 2020. And I met with that group on Wednesday. And you know, I want to say that, you know, they're really now targeted or leaning toward what the governor is doing in terms of putting together the task force. So they're trying to be as collaborative as possible. So they were very interested kind of in who knows what in Anchorage. And so I certainly dropped Meg Zolotel's name and Chris Constance's name. I don't know if the governor has completed putting his task force together yet, but of course Nick Begich and Dave Cuddy, who are the primary sponsors of Intervention 2020, are on that. But anyway, they are very interested in trying to pull together not only the stuff from the statewide perspective, but really, you know, from a lot from Anchorage. So anyway, so I just hope that we can kind of be cooperative in lending all of our expertise, because like I said the experts on the assembly are Chris and Meg, and then we certainly have Nancy Burke and Jasmine Boyle. So anyway, so there's a real push to bring together all the right people to the table at this point, and to make sure that the state is involved. I had a pretty long conversation with Representative Chris Tuck on it as well. So he's on board, and so I just want you all to know that there is an effort that really is trying to make this as broad as possible, and hopefully we'll begin to get the state support, the court support, all the different agency support that we need to really make all of this work. So just wanted to report that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, and actually, question. I do have a question. I was just wondering if Meg or Chris have actually been invited on the task force, or if anybody knows actually who else has actually been invited.
I've never even heard of it until just now.
I was aware of it, but not invited. I guess if my thoughts and views may not align, but I'd be welcome to have the conversation.
Right. Well, and you are definitely an expert on what, you know, with all that you've been doing. So anyway, I just think we probably ought to make sure that we kind of keep abreast of what's going on with the task force. Because, yeah, so I guess it was Bill Willikowski's bill that got passed real quick to make that happen, and they're putting those people together. So maybe we even want to reach out to the task force and say, well, I'm volunteering Meg for another job, but anyway, maybe it would be worth us, you know, making that contact and just offering the help, because we do have the expertise here. So
Sure.
thanks.
Can do. Thank you.
Thanks. Forrest?
You know, actually, it was about the court and some concerns some of the users have, but I think we can save it for the. Chris, when is the next?
Yeah, if I can speak to that briefly. I have asked, in working with Bill, for both of the primary users to submit their concerns in writing to us.
Okay.
So they've given a lot of us a tour, a conversation, told us their perspectives, and you've been on those, you've heard their differences of opinion.
Yeah.
But what I've asked them to do is put it in writing. And then when we get it in writing, it becomes more formal, and then we as a committee will take up the conversation of how do we square those positions, working with them and with Bill. And so just stay tuned. And that's like, I don't know, the 21st or something is the date for the meeting.
Of July.
Yeah.
So it's still a ways out.
Yeah, and so they are preparing their comments in writing now so that we have it in black and white.
Okay. And, yeah, okay. Oh, interesting conversation for the committee.
All right. Okay, great. Thanks everyone. That was a very great and thoughtful discussion. Let's move on. We'll do another roundtable, and maybe there's not much to add, but if there is, any updates from committees on upcoming business. I'll start with folks on the phone, and then I will go around and end with Forrest. Cameron, you shared a little bit. Do you have any more to share on committee?
Nope, no more to share. I did, well, actually, one thing that a group, Tiffany from Recover Alaska and Ag Newbeck are working on a strategic plan related to the CARES Act funding, and they're going to do a presentation for us. Actually, I'm sorry, related to the alcohol tax funding, and they're going to do a presentation at our committee. So they're going to share that theory of change and add to the discussion around that. So just want to add that.
Cool, thanks. Austin, any other committee business?
Yeah, so we'll have the Health Policy Committee next Wednesday at 10. We've had some great speakers and been talking about a lot of the things that we're talking about here and sort of long-term planning. And but we've had really low membership or really low attendance. So last time we had 5 members there, and I think it would be great if other people could attend, because it's really the building blocks for having making the decisions on the alcohol tax. And it feels hard when more people aren't there. I know not everyone's a member, but if people are able to come, we would love to have you. Because of such low membership, in talking with Tiffany, or not membership, attendance, in talking with Tiffany, we decided that it made sense for her to try to present at each meeting in July, which is why she's going to public safety, and I think has or will reach out to Meg about doing it at homelessness as well. And what they're doing is pretty cool. You know, I think they're working with something like 150 partners or something, and are bringing together this strategic plan that touches on all of the buckets, and working with all the experts to come forward with something. So I'm excited. They're going to present that next Wednesday, and then at the other committee meetings. Yeah, and Felix, well, that's it.
Okay, thanks. Crystal?
No, nothing else. Thank you.
Thanks. John?
Yeah, CDC, I think I covered some of the stuff that we'll be doing there, like the parameters on conditional use for shelters and so on. We're doing that through that subcommittee. We still have kind of on our plate, we're not charging ahead with it, is changes to the marijuana law, looking at, just as we've learned, different things that we can do. There's another thing I forgot to mention that has been in the works for maybe a year, and that is the details on how we handle quasi-judicial cases, and it's kind of, I guess, making it more defensible should we ever be challenged on a decision and have a decision appealed. And that is, I think, almost ready for prime time. We're going to have one more brief meeting and then probably introduction, probably not the 14th, but the next meeting in July. And that should help us, but also, if it works for us, is maybe extend the kind of more clear guidelines to other commissions and so on to give, in some regards, give the neighborhoods a fair shake. Sometimes a petitioner or applicant for something at the planning board or the planning zoning commission will get the final say. They might have up to 10 minutes at the end to say some things, and the public has no chance at that point to rebut those points, and that has come out in some cases. So anyway, that's all I got for you. Thank you.
Thanks. Meg?
Thanks. Committee on Homelessness will take up the other 3 pillars that are not the municipal pillars next month. So it'd be great to hear from Tiffany if she's pulled together stakeholders. I know the coalition is working on bringing together the providers of current shelter, in addition to Michelle Brown on the prevention side and our partner on the philanthropic side. So I look forward to that discussion. I guess I just want to underscore, for the alcohol tax discussion as it relates to the committee, I think some of the work we're doing with CARES divorced from one another as we contemplate it. So in that vein, I will just let you all know on July 9th from 6 to 8 p.m., Felix and I are hosting a community conversation around properties acquisition, mostly geared to the Midtown area, but we will hopefully, we have some work sessions before then, which
Did
is.
you say 6 to 9?
6 to 8.
Oh, okay.
2 hours.
I'm not gonna go to that.
I picked the time. I figured we needed plenty of time to listen. But since that comes before us for public hearing on the 14th, we wanted to do it in advance. So if you have folks with, I'll get that information out through the clerk's office so that if you have folks with significant concerns and they can't tune into a work session or whatever, they can join us via Zoom. Thanks.
Thank you. Want to circle back? I think Cameron had something.
Sorry, yeah, I got off mute. Yeah, I wanted to ask John about any work that's happening now. There was a discussion early on about, how if we limit the number of licenses for marijuana stores and for cultivation centers. There's been a lot of discussion in the Spenard area about, a lot of those, and when do we start to say no? Has there been discussion at all around that? Is there a group working on that? Any updates there?
Thanks, Cameron. That has come up frequently. I think most when someone opens a business very close to another business, you hear about it all of a sudden. Spenard has been, the community council has been interested in it because there's so many coming in that area. So it's come up and it's on the list of discussion points, but that one hasn't really been pulled out as kind of the high priority issue. Not that it couldn't, and it was discussed. I mean, we discussed it probably always. Should we limit it?
Yeah.
And we've decided. But one key point is, with the liquor licenses, and actually looking back at the taxi, where we, by limiting them, created a secondary market for them that gave those taxi licenses a great value. And we were very insistent early on in creating these rules that we would not give these licenses a secondary market value. And partly because they're annual, it makes it hard for them to have a long-term value, and they're stuck to a certain location. So it's not quite like the taxi or an alcohol license. So limiting them wouldn't have quite as many implications in that regard. But that was a consideration. It's not giving them having licenses selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, if I can just respond real quick. Maybe you and I can have a conversation offline, and I don't know if Austin wants to be involved in that as well. But the Spenard and Jernigan and Sand Lake, I think, have all sort of talked to us about that and about their concerns about just the number of stores in that area, and that area, Spenard in particular, is because of the buildings and because of a variety of rules that allow that to be a more sort of an easier place for those organizations to go. But anyway, I just want to make sure that we're responding to those councils and addressing that. So maybe you and I can have more of a conversation about that, and we can dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that.
Thanks.
Right.
Yeah, briefly.
Yeah, I would just note that any effort to create a neighborhood-specific limitation, I won't support that. If the limitations are created that are citywide, I'll be fine with that. I'm not interested in seeing an argument that makes some neighborhoods better or worse than others. So it should be fair and equitable across the city, whatever conversation moves forward.
Thanks. Did Jamie step out for a little bit, I guess? Okay, Chris, do you want to go ahead?
What was the question?
So we're doing the roundtable on committees.
Yeah, no, I already got my.
Awesome. Pete, do you have any committee update?
Nothing else but what I brought up a minute ago about the stamps.
Cool. Thank you. All right, I think that covered everyone. Great, so leaves this last hour. I think we'll probably use this last hour for these next two presentations. So we have an assembly budget presentation. So we're going to be submitting our budget, I think on July 10th is when we're going to be submitting our budget to OMB as part of the process. So just wanted to take you guys through the budget and Desiree's going to do that, and a couple of questions that I wanted to get your guys' input on.
So you guys might remember last year, we had a couple in-depth conversations about what we were looking to add to the budget for the department. And it involved new positions in the clerk's office, some basic increases like the interpreter service for dean, what else? Election increases, getting your individual accounts increased to $24,000 a year for each of your accounts, stipends for council interns and such. Essentially, last year we asked for about $356,000 increase, and before we actually got to approving the budget, the administration in the S version increased the assembly department's budget by $229,000. So when we actually got to budget time, we didn't do any actual increases to the department because we got our increases through the S version. And then we prioritized what to actually put in the budget for 2020 using that $229,000. I emailed out the budget doc to everybody, so whoever's not here in person can see it. And in front of you guys, we just have a really basic spreadsheet about our increases for 21. It's essentially a continuation, not any real increases to note. We've got an increase to reinstate the travel budgets that were cut in 1Q for 2020. The administration cut all of the travel budgets across the board for 2020. So I just put it back into the budget for 2021. We've got small labor increases that are predicted by OMB that are in the budget. A couple of small changes to the elections budget, primarily because of vote by mail, it's expensive. And then that's all that we really have for major increases. There is a question about travel that Felix mentioned. If you want to go to page 2, the assembly department or the assembly's budget, you'll see two little figures. Essentially, we have NACO liaisons now, so we want to know whether we want to stay in budget, which is our $17,000, and just do less conferences for everybody, or if we want to increase that budget and do 2 conferences per each liaison, which I'm going to estimate to be around $30,000. So it would be an increase from 17 to 30. So we'd like your opinion on that. And I don't know, trying to think of what else we wanted to run by everybody.
Yeah, I think that was the only question. Yeah, I'll get to this outside of just general comments, and then I have one sort of preview thing to share with everyone. So yeah, that was it. Thank you so much, Desiree. Chris?
Yeah, thanks. So we've been talking about this for a while now, and maybe this is part of the communication subcommittee, I'm not sure. But I know we're updating Granicus, or the new meeting management system. My biggest priority in terms of our work that is continuing to be a lack is a method for the public to have access to our ordinances and resolutions that we pass once they're adopted and signed, so that the public knows what we've actually done. And I just don't know how I'm 4 years into this job and we continue to not have a way for the public to understand what we're doing. And so, to me, if there's excess over expenses, then we should pour whatever we need to into that problem, because the public needs to know what we're doing and they can't follow it right now.
So thanks, Chris. Yeah, if Barbara was here, she probably would have talked about that during her report. So it is actually part of the Agenda Evolution Project. There's monies that are left over from that project that are being used to develop that system. So Barbara would be able to speak to it more eloquently, and if you want, I can just have her email everyone with an update on how that's happening.
To me, that's number one.
Yeah, because it's been on our list.
Yeah.
It's been on Barbara's list, and it's happening.
Thank you.
Any other? Okay, so I guess first, before we get into sort of general comments on the Assembly Department budget, any strong opinions on the travel budget? I mean, it's not total, it's not that much. But if there's strong opinions, I'll listen to those now. Otherwise, we'll just make the decision when we submit the budget on July 10th.
Well, I think those meetings are important, but I don't have a strong opinion. Those meetings are valuable, important. We gain knowledge of what our peers are doing. We build bridges, so yes.
Felix, Weddleton?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
So what is involved, what do we pay for if someone travels?
So I think it depends on where people are going. We have our AML liaisons, and obviously those trips are a tiny bit cheaper because they're within Alaska. But I'd say for NLC, those trips have been about $3,000 on average to send somebody out, because it's about, I want to say, 3 or 4 days in a relatively expensive city. So it ends up being about $3,000.
But and I think maybe John also wanted to know, like, is it just airfare and lodging? Like, what is it?
So it's airfare, lodging, conference registrations, which end up being a couple $100s to register, and then per diem and taxis and such, that kind of stuff.
And all of that, I believe, is outlined in the municipal policies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm not hearing any other strong opinions about it, so we'll go. Oh, go ahead, Pete.
I just wanted to bring up the fact that I am president of AML, so if they're actually having meetings in person, I will be at all of those. And if we don't have the travel budget for that, I can use my own miles to pay for the airfare, so it is what it is.
Is that official now, Pete? You're officially
Starting in November, I'm officially the president. So.
Nice. All right. Okay. So then, thanks. So I guess then, opening up to general, are there any other general thoughts on the budget before we turn it into OMB? This, of course, doesn't mean we can't edit it or amend it like we did last year.
Weddleton?
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
With the voting, we're going to do Juneau and maybe others, and is there, how do we get paid for that? It'd be nice to get a little something extra.
This is Erica McConnell, Deputy Clerk for Elections. Barbara Jones is working on an MOU with the clerk from Juneau, Beth McEwen, to work out the costs and who will be paying for what. My understanding is she has agreed that the time of the core staff, the straight time of core staff will not be charged to Juneau, but expenses for non-core election workers, so people that we would bring in just to do this, and supplies and things like that will be reimbursed by Juneau.
So is it just the direct cost? Because, I mean, a really ideal scenario would be having lots of people sharing our facility there and paying towards the overhead costs, because it's quite expensive. Is that part of the package at all? That seems fair, reasonable, and typical of business.
My understanding is that she is just looking to have direct costs reimbursed for this particular situation.
Well, I would hope that we label that as an introductory offer and not status quo forever.
Understood.
Thanks, John. Meg?
Thanks. I know the travel ship just sailed, but I'm gonna bring it back.
Sure.
I mean, $14,000 for travel at the time of COVID seems ridiculous. Most everything's shifting online. I think to plan it for 2021 is maybe short-sighted, because I think a lot of large group gatherings, and those are large group gatherings that we're contemplating, other than AML maybe. I mean, that's still quite large. They might be hybrid events. That it raises a red flag for me, I guess is what I would say. And the other, I mean, I guess I'm just tracking like kind of where we're getting to a $156,000 difference. The tuition, yeah, I get that, because that would just be your entry fee in. I think if I remember right, like NACO is online right now. It's been completely I would like us to examine that or to keep that idea in mind of what's gonna happen in 2021. I think it's hard, that one's a hard one to justify to the public, quite honestly. That's what's the red flag. I mean, I'm not booking any travel in 2021 yet on a personal level. So.
Thanks, Cameron.
Thank you. Just a question to Barbara and relating to the budget. The discussion we've had, can you give me an update on the sort of the computer system and the display system and the sound system and all of that related to the assembly chambers, and what efforts, I think this is what Austin was talking about some time ago, what efforts we're doing to make it easier for the public to in advance follow what's going on, and then during the meetings to really know what's happening in the process. Is there money in the budget to continue to upgrade those systems so that it's more accessible and easier for the public to really understand what we're doing?
So I can't speak about the agenda evolution, but I can mention that right now we are upgrading the audio visual for Chambers. Sound Decisions is currently in Chambers, and they're reworking wires, and they're going to upgrade your microphones and your speakers and rescreen the screens or the little panels. As far as the rolling screen that a number of you have mentioned, that's not officially part of the project, but I think we're gonna look into doing a change order, since I believe that the original AV upgrade project is gonna be under budget. So we're gonna look into doing a change order and see if we can add some sort of rolling screen so we can accommodate that.
Thanks.
Thanks. Chris?
Yeah, thanks. Just heard the gas in the room.
Oh, that's what I was gonna do.
Mandated the masks on Monday. Love it or hate it, it's here.
8 p.m.
So,
PM?
I think that's what he said. Was it 8 a.m.? 8 a.m.?
yeah, I'm guessing it's here.
That'd be weird.
I give people a day to do it.
Here's something that we haven't really talked about, but we continue to butt up against this. Jason's here, so he might have some insight to this. We've struggled with the process of boards and commissions because the 8th floor is thin staffed and it's always a challenge. And we've just made some very interesting appointments to commissions that I can't even tell you how they're really staffed, like the Public Safety Commission in particular. And maybe one of the things we contemplate is how to work with our budget in partnership with 8th floor to ensure proper staffing for critical commissions that we want to see actual progress out of, as opposed to all the commissions that have their methods, like the Public Safety Commission, in relationship to all of the hot conversations we're having going on. And so I don't know how that would fit in the budget or staffing or between the two houses, if you will, but that might be an area we contemplate to the budget, how we strengthen.
So I have a comment on that, but Jason, you want to go first?
I will just say that the commission that Chris mentioned, we do have an individual from AFD that currently staffs that commission and helps them kind of move through the process and get information out. But it is extra work on top of some of those other duties at the side that we ask people to do, so that there is somebody from the various departments that oversee the various commissions that we have. But it is a lot of work. So yeah, I think that's a conversation we work out.
So, and then my additional comments on top of that is, so last year in the 2020 Assembly budget priorities memo that we sent to the administration, we did ask for funding to be included for staffing of certain commissions. And specifically, there were commissions that fit around our quality of life priorities, and that did not get included in the budget in the end. And then also an aside from that, about a year ago, maybe more than that, I tried to begin having conversations with the administration about how do we revitalize some of our boards and commissions. And that, for a variety of reasons, that conversation fell through. Actually, I asked John to help spearhead some of those discussions. And now that we are having this, as I dubbed it earlier, sort of the connecting the dots kind of conversation, it is on my menu of things when I'm talking about connecting the dots with the administration to talk about our boards and commissions and what we can do to make sure that they're part of all of these different processes. So yes, that is a great comment, and I think it is on our sort of top of mind and how we think about this.
And if I might just last note on that, when I think of the really amazing appointment this week to our Public Safety Commission, my fear is they get into a place where there's nothing to do and there's no meat there for them to actually achieve any kind of measurable policy advancements. And so then it becomes more of a token. And I want to do everything possible to ensure that this work we're doing is not token, but is meaningful. So that's where I come at with this.
Thanks. So I have Jason, then Meg.
I just also wanted to mention, I don't know if anyone has actually seen this or gone, but we have been working very hard on updating how information is presented to the public on the mayor's page when it comes to boards and commissions. Just recently, if you go to it, we've updated it so that every individual that is on a particular board or commission is on there. If they're the chair, the vice chair, or just a member, what their current term is, and are there vacancies on
the car's
boards and
on.
commissions. So, if you guys, we always try to push out regular communications that we are always interested in more individuals submitting applications to serve on boards and commissions. So, to the extent that you guys want to also either share those messages or put out your own to apply, we're always looking for more folks to serve on these boards and commissions. So typically when you see a vacancy on one, that's typically why. We just don't have anyone that has applied for us to put forward.
Thanks. Yeah, I saw that upgrade, that update to the website, and that looks nice. Meg?
Thanks. So in line with what Chris has said and what Jason has said, I think if we can figure out a way to be more, that we in our roles can engage the boards and commissions more. One, it'll feel like it's much more substantial activity for those who have applied. And I don't know if it would even require mission modification potentially, but to explicitly say we want policy advisement and appropriations advisement in those areas of subject matter expertise, because like BAC is really, the budget advisory is really good at advising us, but some don't give us policy or budget advice, because I don't know if they know if that's their lane or not. So I would like to explicitly ask for that, because I think we have a lot on our plates, and this is great expertise we should use this.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so got it. So any other general? Oh, Pete, did you want to add?
Is this on? We're still working on assembly budget.
Yes. Yeah, that was a little bit of a aside, but that's okay. It was a good part.
I just wanted to mention that the main reason the elections budget is going to be up next year is because it's a mayoral election.
Mm-hmm.
We're anticipating a runoff since we won't have an incumbent mayor, and so that's why there's an additional $50,000 in there for proving it. Point that out. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. All right, I'm not seeing any other general discussion. So thank you so much, Desiree. I guess just one matter of preview that wasn't included in here, but I don't know exactly how things are going to be. Everyone's running away as I'm saying it, but that's okay. But so assembly aids. So just as an FYI, one unknown impact on the budget is assembly aids. Muni Legal is doing an analysis on our aides regarding their classification as a contractor versus an employee. Once that analysis is done, that might lead to changes in the budget, but I don't have enough information right now until that analysis is done. So just an FYI, that could be something that impacts the budget, and when we see it back in October. All right, next is CARES Act follow-up. Let's actually go ahead and take 5 minutes, grab lunch if we haven't, and then we'll do CARES Act.
There is
Sorry, say that again?
There's lunch.
Yeah, there is lunch in there, yeah.
Just gives you insight into how they operate perennially.
Yeah, it was really frustrating. I felt like I was getting technically explained over my concerns.
Explain.
Explain. Well, yeah, I'm a technocrat too, though. so-
No, you're a policymaker now. And
Well, I feel like I really need to know how things are gonna play out, so.
Yeah, no.
So I get that part, but, yeah. And I think we should utilize this at least on a quarterly basis to give a mass update
Agreed.
to the body, because it does feel like it's in its own
You get
world.
played.
Well,
You get played.
and it affects so much of comprehensive land use and transportation policy.
I hate getting played.
Yeah.
So folks on the phone, we're going to come back in a few minutes. When we do, excuse me, if you can have that document opened on the, what was it, the models of work for CARES Act funding, please. I'll let you know when we come back.
Well, I guess we'll see if all hell breaks loose on Monday.
I know. It's going to be something.
So I'm comfortable with it. Okay, good.
I was reading about the different airlines' policy for masks and distancing. Alaska is not selling any of their middle seats, at least until the end of July, through the end of July.
What?
Alaska Airlines is not selling any middle seats until the end of July.
Is that really an issue for them now?
Yeah.
Could they sell them?
Nobody can do away with middle seats. Nobody likes middle seats. Pull it out of there.
Since I have bought a ticket and will be traveling near the end of July on Alaska, I'm coming back in 9th of August. Well, I'm still hoping there won't be middle seats booked. But they do require that everybody wear a mask. I'm going to be buying some goggles and also some gloves. So, 6-hour flight to Chicago, I did not take a few chances.
Good choice.
But I'm going to my niece's wedding and she's got 100 people invited, so that's going to be totally insane, I think.
Is it going to be an indoor wedding?
I don't know. Well, the good news is she originally was going to invite 400.
We've got it. So we just want to spend the time researching it and making sure.
Jason, have you guys sent out the, they haven't actually sent out the policy yet, have they? Jason?
What?
You haven't actually released the EO yet, have you?
No, we've not. It'll likely be accepted. We can still print it out on letterhead and here sign it. But
Great.
As soon as it's all done, we'll send it out to everyone.
Thank you.
So you excited about the farmer's market tomorrow?
You're not on those email threads, are you?
I must not be.
Our whole, like basically our whole board resigned. So we're gonna go forward, but there is basically effectively no board, and we're gonna have way fewer volunteers, because I mean, it's all run by elderly folks. Old, how would you call it? What's the best term? Seniors?
Seniors.
Elders.
Elders.
How would you, okay.
I say elders.
Whoa. What?
That's like asking Felix how you address anybody under 30.
He's not under 30.
Say what?
He's not under 30.
I am not under 30 now.
I know, but you're the closest to 30 we've got.
That's true.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair, like, anyway, the point is, they're mostly retired persons of retirement age. And they don't feel safe.
Yeah.
So a lot
Of course.
That term is not going to exist.
Oh, retirement?
now.
Yeah, exactly. What is this retirement you
And
speak
Social
of?
Security, you've got to be 70 to be of retirement age, full retirement. That's
Well,
great.
most of our people are over 70.
Aren't they really? Wow.
I mean, I was certainly over 65, and a
You
lot
have a
of
very
them are-
active elder community.
Sure. East Anchorage, I don't know if it has the most seniors, but it's got to be up there. I mean, we have a bunch of facilities. It's a huge
You also
part.
have, the facilities are over there.
And we have the most people.
Centennial
Our district is the
Village.
largest district too in terms of population, so we just have a lot of folks.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have Centennial Villages, and I mean that's one of them. We've got another huge one off of Muldoon. We've got other ones being built.
Well, the one on
back
Boniface and DeBar there where they've had all the inspections, you know?
Oh yeah, no, that's a
Transitional care.
transition care. That's not
Yeah.
exactly a senior.
I've been in most of them doing estate planning.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with
Christopher.
your district. In that capacity.
I can't see my calendar because I can see my stuff. What's happening in Felix? I
So
know.
at 1 o'clock, we have a special assembly meeting. It's a legal update. We do it
We did
regularly.
officially have our first game.
And then after that, we have a work session at 3 o'clock
West Anchorage
on
85.
CRTF.
Nice, good.
That's the only game we get to play this year. We're undefeated.
Awesome.
Granicus is like, you have a new password.
I have to tell you, I was the only one there between all the players and all the fans and the umpire and everyone, all the coaches. I was the only one with a mask on.
Jeez.
Okay.
And I went around and measured all the bleachers for,
I will tell you.
and put duct tape down so people would know where 6 feet was. Nobody paid any attention to it.
That's right.
I don't know if I have.
The reason I say that is because we took in the funds and we couldn't.
No, I think we've been
Because they're already messed up. They already said something about, I don't know.
doesn't really put out rules, but
We don't have to. It's a lot of different
crisis
places.
now, everything on a treatment center and everything else, it's kind of like taking a side detour.
I know, that's what I talked about.
So the board all resigned over the farmer's market?
Yeah.
Whatever.
We're trying to find the board, but we're still gonna go forward tomorrow, but it's
Okay.
gonna be.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and
Or
get
not.
started because I think we might use the rest of our meeting on this next discussion.
I just don't agree with how they're going about it.
So, all right, so folks on the phone, hopefully you're ready to get going again. All right, so next discussion under other items is CARES Act follow-up. So, wanted to see if we could settle on some type of model of work so that we can move forward. As I said on Tuesday, we need to engage in the discussions around outcomes and goals before any future proposals are put forward. I think there were some different views last week on how we wanted to accomplish this work, so I wanted to talk through at least what I heard last week and then see how we could move forward. So, with that, have 5 different models of work for the CARES Act funding, and they're relatively simple. Like I said, we talked about these last week. So first is some limited work group type model, where we have a limited number of members working in these different areas, and then they do some of the initial heavy lifting and bring up some ideas for the entire assembly to consider. Then there was the all-member work group model, where we don't have a limit. Every member who is interested can be involved in these different discussions. Then there was the committee model that was discussed, where we rely on the committee meetings to handle this work. Then there is the assembly priorities model that was discussed, where we align our work groups with assembly priorities, do similar kind of work, bring it back for the entire group to involve, to review. Then there was the all-day meeting model, which was basically lock ourselves up in a room on a Saturday and delve into each of these areas as a body and do some of that initial heavy lifting before we disperse and perhaps do some other kind of model as described in the first 4. Those were, I think, captured the different ideas that came out of last week's meeting. Also want to note that in all of these ideas, there is going to be some amount of flexibility and agility that needs to be ingrained into them as things progress. So, with that, I think what I want to do is I just want to start with a round table where we, if we've had any thoughts or evolutions of thoughts since last week, and see if there's maybe some amalgamation of any of these, or if folks think they have a preferred style that they want to move forward with. My goal and objective is for us to have a preferred style and then move forward with that work. So that is what I'm hoping for. I'm going to start with Meg, go around table, then end with folks on the phone. So I'm going to go ahead, Meg.
Thanks. So I put no beside the all-day meeting model, like first thing. I guess that's, to me, like that's our Hail Mary last resort if we need it. I think we could possibly need it, but I think there's a lot of other work to do before we even got to that to make it really, truly worthwhile to shove us all in a room together. Not that I don't love you all and want to spend the day with you. I'm open to any of these. I really just want to be of the highest and best use on the areas that I've already kind of put the time into and the things I know the most about. And I'm happy to take the lead from the other members on the things they know the most about and they're the most passionate about. So I think it fits into any of those. And of course, the things we've all talked about align with our priorities. So I think that's almost a given that it's happening. So nothing terribly complicated, I apologize.
That's okay. I'm gonna go all the way around, don't worry. Jamie.
I understand where Meg's coming from, but I also want to, I'm an expert on the issues, and I think the more I'm involved, the more I can become more knowledgeable. So if people will have me, I'd like to be on the committees. Maybe I won't say a lot, but I want to learn. And I think for me, it would best represent me.
Did you have any general thoughts on any of these? Do you think all of these would work, or you have?
Just listening.
Cool. All right, Chris.
So I have to take the counter Meg position, and
Popular position.
I won't go on Facebook. So my theory is that is that we should sooner than later get together for an intensive day of work. And in fact, this almost perfectly encapsulates what we should do. We should have limited work groups in the day. And then we should do all member work groups where we review everything that the work groups did and we prioritize from there. We don't need to break into the committee monitor because we're going to all be assembled. And we frame the whole conversation around our priorities. And then what we do is establish if there's further work to be done on the specific content that we prioritize through that conversation. Then small groups can be identified that day to work forward on the projects. But I think until we get all questions in front of us and have a really robust conversation, we're going to be keeping the snip corners and never get to the heart of the matter. And so for me, I evaluate starting together and finishing together, and then if we need in the middle, do all of the breakout work.
Thanks. Pete.
Wow, I thought we just passed CARES Act funding on Tuesday. What additional, what more is there to do?
20 million of 159 million.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah, we have a lot more.
We passed we passed like 15% of
The
the.
community might have spent 20 already on emergency expenses, so we'll back that up. FEMA may or may not come in with the difference.
We still got 70% of it to spend.
Okay. Well, I think the most important thing is to make sure that the decisions we're making are where to spend this money is actually going to be allowable, so that we don't have to pay it back at some point in the future. For me, that's the most important part of this CARES Act thing, is that we don't commit to spending money that we're going to have to try to find some point in the future, because looking at our revenues coming in the future are probably going to be down from what they've been in the past, unless there's some sort of miracle that I'm not anticipating.
Thanks.
Can I go off that point?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know, am I next in line actually?
You are, yeah.
So I agree with what Pete said. I think that actually militates in favor of the all-day meeting model. And the reason is because then we could have, what I like about that model is presumably the administration folks would be in the room with us, or at least a few of them. And certainly somebody with legal would be there to say, this is a great idea, but we don't think you can do this for this reason or that reason. We don't have to listen to them. But what I'm worried about if we break out the small working groups, so I'll say this, number 3 and number 5 are the two ones that appeal to me. Insofar as 1 and 2 and 4 can be subsumed into 5, I'm fine with that, but for reasons of capacity, that is, I don't want to create a bunch of new little work groups that we all have to do. I think we're all busy enough. And then number 2, I think there are real concerns with the Open Meetings Act. I think this thing is going to be really hard to do that in a way that doesn't violate the Open Meetings Act, versus obviously if we did the all-day work model, it would be publicly noticed, and we'd have to be cognizant of that. We'd probably live stream it even, but we'd certainly have people, members of the public could come, although we might limit capacity because of COVID. But for me, I just envision, us brainstorming, and like we did, like some big whiteboard where we're talking about ideas. We can add up the math. We can figure out, okay, here's our proposal. We could break up into smaller groups, but then come back together. We have the admin with us there the whole time to figure out what we can and can't spend it. And ultimately what we produce is, first of all, it might not be agreed to unanimously. It might end up not being what we, what ends up being the final package. But it would be something that you could juxtapose with what I assume is going to be a large administration package proposal that would be sort of comprehensive. So again, for me, I prefer either we stay with the committee models, and I think we've done good work in some of the committees, or I think we do the big meeting. But I don't really want to create a slew of new working groups that I think are going to be time consuming and potentially problematic for the Open Meetings Act. So,
Thanks. Go ahead, go to the phone, and then, so what I'm going to do is phone, see if we have any other thoughts just based on what everyone else said. And then I think I'm going to do what I've done prior, which is ask everyone to vote on something just so I can get a sense. So, Cameron.
My recommendation is that we do number 5. For all the reasons that were mentioned, it will actually be a more efficient way to make decisions with the administration in the room, with all of us in the room, and bringing legal and others. So I think that that's really the most efficient use of time. The other thing I would offer to you, Felix, is I do think if we do that, it needs to be a thoughtfully designed day, and I'd be happy to sit down with you and work with you on how to sort of structure and design that day, so we're really, maximizing our time, and that we come out of that day with something really, with a really solid product. And so I would recommend that. If that's not what people want, then I would agree that not going into small work groups, but for instance, using the committees. But again, I think that we need to be thinking about sort of how we structure that so that those committees aren't duplicating work, and that they are actually, structured in a way that gets us to where we want to be. So that's my recommendation. I think there's too much isolated work anyway, and any opportunity for us to have a day to complete our work, I think it's really an effective use of time. But if it's not thought through and structured and designed, then it will feel like a waste of time. So I would encourage us to go that direction, and I'm happy to volunteer time to help to build that. Thanks.
Thank you.
I propose July 4th as the meeting.
No, that's not letting it happen.
I'm kidding.
I'll do it. Crystal.
I'm kidding. We're not going to meet on July 4th.
Okay, thanks, Felix. I think, I know it's been said before, the Assembly's priorities really is the overlay on all these conversations. So I think anything we do is probably going to lean toward recognizing that we've already identified those priorities. But, I guess I'm looking at more of the all-day thing, even though I think I would even revise that a bit to say maybe it's a half-day meeting. I think that we do need to be in the same room with the administration, because I would much rather kind of start the conversation off with some kind of a package been developed where things have been identified in advance, and then we can kind of revise those, amend those, whatever, add, take away, so that we have something to really kind of start the whole conversation with. Because typically some of this stuff comes up in our actual committees, the committee work that we have right now with all the different committees. So we can just bring all those thoughts into that one big conversation. I also think that, again, I look at all of this as from a phasing approach. I think we look at a chunk of this maybe every month, because we need to constantly monitor the impact of what we've already done. We need to monitor and reassess the actual condition and situation of the community. So I don't envision any of this as being, okay, we're going to meet this on one day, we're going to do it all, and then we're done. So we probably need to take it into some kind of a chunk at a time. And I think we could probably do the next chunk with just a half-day meeting with the administration, and then we can just kind of hash it out then. So thanks.
Thank you, Crystal. John.
Thanks. I had a couple questions. First, I think when you say maybe split it up, we have, of course, our assembly priorities that was well documented and displayed, but then we also had talked before about CARES Act that we had, I guess, kind of 4 groups: immediate investments, transformative investments, future investments, and municipal response. Are you thinking in those categories, or under our assembly priorities, the broader group?
Under assembly priorities, the idea was work groups that matched the priorities.
Okay. I don't know that our committees exactly match those. I mean, they could be shoehorned in. I'm a little more with Crystal, that they maybe a half-day meeting, kind of with good documentation when we start, we can kind of get a direction and then figure out how we split things up amongst committees that may match the standing committees or may be new committees, and then regroup and see where we land. And I'd want to see, as when we do it, some of the goals, and it's like, what we did at our last Tuesday meeting, we provided some money to various things, and I responded to some of the child care places, said, hey, we committed $10 million, and there you have it, maybe more later. And the response was, that's not nearly enough, from a couple of them. And I think their desires have become expectations that they will be made whole in this. They're important and they should not suffer. And I just think there is simply not enough money to come close to doing that for anyone. And I just want to make sure, at least that first meeting, we have some broad understanding of what this money can be used for and how successful it can be. And I think that's one thing. Not enough will be one of the dominant statements. There'll never be enough money to replace what everybody is losing now and lost during closures and so on. But I'm for the half day.
Thanks.
And the 4th is fine with me.
Okay. Are there any other assembly members on the phone? Oh, Austin.
I'm here, Felix. This is
Okay, go ahead.
Austin. Thank you. I like the model that most other members are mentioning, where I think I do the half day or the full day. It seems the most efficient, even if it's difficult because it's more meetings. But I think having us all in the same room makes sense, since some of the Open Meetings Act stuff, if we're trying to work independently, gets a little inefficient. I think, though, that, and I suspect that anything you would pull together would be well run and organized, Felix, so I have no doubts about that, because that's how you always do it. I think it might be, though, somewhat makes sense to have both, like have people doing some small group work on, for instance, Meg and I, or Chris and I, or Forrest and I have talked about various things that we're sort of working on, and so it seems like we could keep doing that, and then everyone could bring forward at this day or half day all of the things they have been working on and the information they've gathered, and the administration would be there, and then we could sort of all work together. I would put in a pitch for a Friday rather than a weekend, just because it's summer, and I think people are, doing camping trips and such, and I just wouldn't want to miss anyone, and we're all accustomed to being there on Fridays. That's it, thanks.
Thanks. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead, just see if there's any other discussion before a decision is made. And we don't have that long. So let's keep these comments short. So I have Cameron, Chris, then Meg.
Thanks. And I'm not sure if Austin was referring to my comment, but I just wanted to make sure you knew that I certainly was not criticizing your ability to structure or run a meeting. I think you do a fantastic job at that. I was just offering help with that. So, and I guess my comment is that I really appreciated what Crystal said. I think one of the challenges that we often face is that the administration is there and they're listening to us, but they're working on their own stuff and they're kind of doing it behind the scenes. And so it feels often like we're just working sort of out by ourselves, and then we put something together, and then they all of a sudden have put something together while we put something together. And I realize that there's reasons behind that, but I do really think that if they could come forth with a proposal or with some sort of recommendations or something that we can sort of combine with the work that we're already doing, I think that would be really helpful, because it feels often that we are working in isolation and that we're not necessarily, that we're just sort of out here spinning on our own. So I would just really second this idea of coming with some pre-work already done that we can react to and we can work on, whether that's work we're currently doing or work the administration's doing. I think that would be a really efficient use of time. And I would agree that if we structure it and plan it well, we may not need a full day. And I like this idea of this not being the place where we make the decisions for all the money, but maybe this is the next step. Those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Thanks. Chris?
Yep, just 3 comments on this. One of the most important things about us doing this in a convened time is that the public will hear the direction we're going. And then between that moment and when we make the final action, they'll be basing their comments on what we've actually discussed in the public and the direction we're generally going. And I'm strongly in support of that, so we build support. Thoughtfully designed, Cameron said, and I agree, you're excellent at thoughtful design. My only caveat would be, hopefully we pick a facilitator that doesn't have a stake in the game, that hasn't been before us telling us why and how we should spend money on certain priorities, so we don't get a process that lends us to support of someone else's priorities, but instead are more our own. And then finally, I agree with Crystal that we need at least 2 tranches. I said it over again. We should have a whole set of funds we don't even contemplate touching until October 1st, because the reality after school starts and in the fall is going to be much different than it is today. We have no sense of where that's going to be. So I believe those are the caveats that I would place, but this is really great thinking.
Thanks. Meg?
Great. A couple of questions. Are we expecting a big administration package?
Yeah, I think that's to Jason.
Yeah. Are we expecting a big administration package like that deals with the whole for the CARES Act funding from you guys?
I don't believe that there will be a full package that says, here's everything that we want to do all at once. I think as we have all discussed, that this is going to be an ongoing process over the next 4 to 6 months. So I can't say that we're going to say, we have $136 million left. Here's what we want to do with it, right away.
So that actually raises the second question in terms of timing around this, because I think the timing we're talking about in terms of a all-day meeting model is really an important aspect to this. Are we talking about like trying this twice? Are we trying, kind of a once? If we set the timing to try to move something through the body by, let's say, August, the other 8 months, August, is there enough time if the administration wants to bring something forward and we want to bring forward proposals? I do like the pre-formed proposals. I think that's at least be something to start with, some meat to dig into. But I do feel like we're not engaging the public enough on this. I liked Chris's comments, but I really want us to make sure we're having opportunities where we can engage the public. I mean, typically that would have been done during community councils, but it's summertime and then it's already sporadic. But I really want us to kind of keep thinking about that. And are we looking to put forward something that we're going to hopefully put forward, introduce, and then move to public hearing? Or are we looking for something to pass in the way that we passed the other funding? So, thanks.
Thanks, Meg. Those are all good questions, and they will be considered before any date is set for this. Any other discussion? Okay, so seeing that, then I'm going to go ahead I guess when I get a affirmation from the group, then I'm going to move forward to some version of 5, and then I'm going to take all of these questions, comments, thoughts into concern as I'm designing this meeting, and then it'll be a productive, wonderful meeting. So we good with that?
What affirmation do you need? Motion?
Thumbs up. How's a thumbs up work?
I mean, I was thinking, no, I guess I'll give you like a... The question I have is if you're looking at a time frame, you may want to specific, especially if you're looking at a Saturday, who's going to be around? Because I do have commitments already scheduled for like a couple of months.
Sure. Yeah.
Doodle.
We'll
So actually, contemplating this document, the agenda, there's a little double duty we need to do here. We need to be very concentrated on CARES Act funding, but everything we're talking about are budget priorities. And so we should actually, in this conversation, have a secondary talk about our budget and the July communications to the administration. Because I don't know about you, but this moment, this pandemic, and these funds have helped me to see the priorities of our budget in a much different and clear light than I have in the past. And so I think having an analysis of our future budget priorities at the same time might be actually very helpful, especially considering the fact that both of these are careening towards public action soon.
Yeah, Forrest.
I would just say, if possible, I would prefer Friday to Saturday.
Me too.
Yep. Yeah, I've heard it. All right. Okay, so not hearing anything else. Thanks, guys. So I'm gonna take that as a positive affirmation that we'll move forward with this model. Thank you. It helps me move us forward. I guess we'll go ahead and open it up. Is there anyone for audience participation that isn't a member?
Unmute everybody.
Hello?
Hi, are you a member of the public?
I am. I am calling out of Girdwood. My name is Crystal, and I was just hoping to voice some support for the proposal that we have put forward regarding our health clinic and our child care. I want to say thank you so much to the Assembly members who participated with the State of the Child Care. I thought that that was really interesting and really hit the nail on the head as far as what our needs are, and not only in Girdwood but municipal-wide. I would agree with the $10 million not being enough for child care in general. And I think if we don't invest in our kids getting back to a safe environment, our economy will never come back around. So that is of huge importance. Our buildings out here are dilapidated, and we really need assistance as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And, did she say? Sorry, could you state your name again, please?
It's Crystal Hoke.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't mind doing one more. Do we have anyone else?
Everybody's unmuted.
This is John Rentz.
Hi, go ahead, John.
Okay, yeah, I'm John Rentz, and I'm calling from Anchorage, but I have ties to Girdwood. And first of all, I'd like to thank you guys for taking a strategic long-term approach. I know there's a lot of priorities, but I hear that theme, and I appreciate it. I guess I would ask that each of you look into your own personal life, and I think you'll find that your life-changing decisions came not during boom times, but usually when things were stressful. And this is a very stressful time. Most of us have never seen something like this. But I think the best we can do is turn it into an opportunity, which is what your discussion's about. I'd like to cite Girdwood as a good example. Here in one generation as a community that's gone from a sleepy ski town to the first responding asset for almost 25% of the municipal land area, and the growth and use in turning an arm in that land area is just relentless. And so finally, closing remark is, I know there's tremendous pressure on you, and I would suggest that periodically you just remind yourself, don't let the search for perfection get in the way of progress. So anyway, thank you for your work, and I'll go mute again.
Great, thank you. With that, I have to adjourn the meeting. Thanks.